Our next presenter tonight is Claire Liu. In addition to co-organizing Ignite Chicago, Claire is the founder of ClarityBox, a service that helps CEOs and small business owners see their company more clearly. Previously, she was one of the original co-founders of the Starter League, and she is a proud Northwestern University alum. Please welcome Claire.
I've never done this before, even though I organize this, so we're going to see how this turns out. Has to start at the front. You have to move it up a couple. No, you're good. All right. Well, tonight I want to talk to you about true feedback. It's something that I believe in the workplace is more important than anything else. I think it's the key to people becoming happier at work and to companies becoming more productive. And really, it began for me about 8 months ago when I realized that I was unhappy at work. Even though my coworkers were wonderful and the work itself was challenging, there was just something that was off. And I realized I was unhappy because I felt like I couldn't be open and honest in communicating what could be better in the organization. I was unhappy because I couldn't give feedback. And I realized that this inability to give feedback is really the underlying reason for why most people are unhappy at work. And that when we feel like we can't say what could be better in a situation, that it frustrates us and that we become disengaged. And not only does the inability to give feedback negatively affect us as people, but it also negatively affects the organization itself. I feel as though it's really these things that we don't say that end up hurting the organization the most. When something isn't vocalized, it's the assumptions that we act on. We end up not seeing the full picture, the truth. And it's really this truth of what's under the surface that is most crucial to an organization being able to become better. And so, really, the concept of true feedback is wanting your organization to become better in terms of wanting your organization to see the current reality for what it is. So, how can we, in the companies and organizations that we're a part of, enable true feedback? How can we communicate more openly and honestly at work? Well, it's hard, that's for sure. Even the word feedback in itself carries negative connotation and implication. We oftentimes say things to ourselves like, it's just not worth it, or maybe, nothing's going to change. But really, these things that we tell ourselves around feedback, these fears that we have, they're myths. And our ability to give true feedback is based on whether or not we can overcome them. So, the first myth that I believe we have to overcome about feedback is the fact that feedback, when we give it, it's because we want to say something bad. When in fact, when someone wants to give feedback, it's actually because they genuinely care. The second myth around feedback has to do with the fact that when we give it, we feel like we can't be both nice and honest. And that's simply not true. If we want to say what can be better about a company or a situation, it's possible to be both candid and kind. So, what can we actually do about this? How can we put true feedback into practice? Well, there's no formula, of course, but I think that it can begin with each of us taking some small steps. I think it can begin with some individual action. And so what that really entails, I think the first thing is, as my slide turns, I think the first thing is that you have to actually ask the question. When you want feedback, you can't just say, oh yeah, I'm open to feedback, but you actually have to ask others in order to give it. The second thing that I believe each of us can do is that we can admit our assumptions behind why we give our feedback. We can say, this is my opinion, and it's because of X, Y, and Z, and even admit that maybe you don't have the full picture. And then I think the third thing that we can do is that we can say more clearly why we're giving the piece of feedback in the first place. When feedback's misinterpreted, it's most often because we're misreading the intention behind it. And so I think that we can enable true feedback with these three pieces, with asking questions, admitting our assumptions, and saying why. So ask, admit, say why. But I think above all these things, the most important piece, if we want to communicate more openly and honestly, is that we have to believe that it's the best way for our organization to get better, and that really seeing the truth is an organization's oxygen. And so I believe if we care about seeing this truth, if we care about communicating more openly and honestly, if we care about true feedback, then it makes really for happier people at work and ultimately better organizations. Thank you.